A deafening blast reverberated through the school's basement, shaking the foundation and snuffing out lights in the hallway above. Alarms shrieked, echoing in shrill waves through corridors that moments ago had been mundane and silent. Smoke rolled upward in thick, choking clouds, obscuring lockers, walls, and doors. Frantic screams erupted from unseen corners, each cry colliding with the metallic clash of lockers denting and crumpling under falling debris. Broken glass glinted on the floor, shards reflecting flickers of emergency strobes. Emma could barely breathe. Her lungs felt scorched, her vision blurred. She stumbled forward, arms raised to shield her face from swirling dust. The reek of gas mingled with the acrid stench of smoldering plastic. Blood pounded in her ears, making it impossible to think. She thought she heard someone shouting her name from behind. A desperate call, a faint echo in the pandemonium. She couldn't tell if it was real or just the pounding in her skull. She tripped over a collapsed metal beam, nearly crashing headlong into the shattered remains of a door. Flames licked from beneath the floorboards, revealing rifts torn open by the explosion. In the flickering light, she glimpsed something familiar lying still near the lockers. Was it a person? Her stomach lurched as she recognized the outlines of a backpack. It looked like Anna's, the same bright color Anna had carried every day. But Anna was gone. Emma's chest seized at the memory. Every breath weighted with regret and terror. Somewhere behind Emma, the hall caved in with a groan, unleashing another storm of rubble. In a burst of panic, she jolted into motion again, ignoring the wave of agony that shot up her leg. The building was coming apart. Smoke stung her nose. Each breath felt like knives in her throat. She pressed forward, only dimly aware of a second explosion rumbling far below. And then everything lurched, the floor splitting beneath her feet. A final shriek tore from Emma's lungs before the hallway gave way entirely, and she fell into darkness. 10 days earlier, the hallway that would eventually crumble into chaos was calm and ordinary. Pale morning light spilled through the high windows, illuminating neat rows of lockers and the faint scuff marks on the tiled floor. The only sound was the chatter of students trickling in before first bell, an unremarkable symphony of idle gossip, laughter, and locker doors slamming. Emma walked through these corridors with shoulders hunched beneath the weight of her backpack. She was a slim girl with dark hair fraying at the edges of a loose ponytail. On her face was an expression of constant watchfulness, as if bracing for a blow that never quite arrived. Her eyes darted around, searching. She spotted Anna at the far end of the hall, leaning against a locker and laughing with a boy, Nolan. Anna looked as radiant as ever, long, wavy hair pulled into a neat braid, bright eyes that seemed to absorb the light around her. She moved with a confidence Emma envied. Next to her, Nolan hovered like a loyal sentinel, a soft smile playing on his lips. Anna said something that made him laugh. He leaned forward, hanging on her every word. Emma noted the easy warmth between them, a warmth that felt out of her reach. Yet, as Emma approached, Anna lit up and waved, calling Emma's name across the hallway. It was the sort of greeting reserved for a dear friend. Emma forced a wobbly smile in response, feeling the familiar pang of conflict in her chest. She longed for Anna's approval and resented Anna's natural brilliance all at once. When Emma finally reached them, Anna gave a quick hug, casual, affectionate. Nolan offered a friendly nod, but his focus drifted back to Anna as if compelled by an invisible magnet. Emma tried to tamp down her jealousy. She listened as Anna bubbled about some upcoming art project, about how the teacher loved her sketches. Nolan teased Anna for being an overachiever, and Anna teased him back for being glued to the basketball court. Their banter was light, frictionless, a dance of unspoken affections that Emma could only observe from the fringes. The bell rang, and they split to different classrooms. Emma lagged behind, her hand tightening on the strap of her backpack. 10 days from this moment, she would set in motion a disaster that not only ended Anna's life, but also destroyed countless others. The seeds of jealousy, heartbreak, and misguided longing were already there, hidden beneath forced smiles and polite conversation. In just over a week, those seeds would take root in unimaginable darkness. Emma Martin was 15 years old, a sophomore at Redwood High. Her parents had divorced at the end of the previous semester, leaving her to float between her dad's cramped apartment and her mom's new place several towns over. The arrangement was awkward and inconsistent. Sometimes Emma's father slept all day after night shifts, leaving her to fix her own meals. Sometimes her mom would promise to pick her up, only to text last minute that she couldn't make the drive. Emma found herself constantly balancing schedules, hauling textbooks and clothes between two households that never felt like home. This morning, she'd come to school from her dad's apartment, which was closer to Redwood High. She wore the same jeans from the day before, because laundry was a chaotic affair at best. She clutched a second-hand phone with a cracked screen, anxious for messages that never arrived. Inside her chest, an emptiness lurked, loneliness spiked with frustration. She wasn't sure how she'd reached this point, going through the motions day after day with the sense that nobody really saw her. Anna had grown up in a neat two-story house on Elm Street. Her parents were still together, happy, or so it seemed, and her bedroom was a swirl of pastel curtains and half-finished art projects. Anna was Redwood High's rising star in the art department, known for her vivid watercolor pieces displayed in the school corridors. Teachers loved her for her dedication. Classmates gravitated toward her easy laugh and gentle manner. Even on days Anna wore no makeup, her face glowed as if lit from within. And though Anna was kind enough to never flaunt her advantages, Emma couldn't help feeling that Anna's life was something out of a storybook. Yet Anna insisted that Emma was her best friend. The two had known each other since kindergarten, had endured the awkward middle school years together, had survived humiliating group projects and dreaded Halloween parties. Emma used to treasure that bond, until puberty and heartbreak changed everything. Now, all Emma could see was the divide between Anna's charmed existence and her own unraveling life. Topping it off was Nolan Pierce. He was Anna's longtime friend, a sweet-natured boy with messy brown hair and a shy but genuine smile. He was quiet around most people but lit up in Anna's presence. Nolan had a subtle athletic build. He played basketball more for fun than competition, but was good enough to keep up with the varsity guys. He also had a gentle humor that manifested in quiet jokes and encouraging words. It was impossible to dislike him. Emma had tried in her mind to demonize him so she could stop aching for him. But she couldn't. Nolan was simply too genuine, too gentle. Anna didn't flaunt that closeness. Still, Emma felt each of their shared smiles like a knife. She noticed how Anna drew confidence from Nolan's unwavering support, how they exchanged glances full of unspoken affection. Though they insisted they were friends, Redwood High rumor mills churned out the notion that they were destined to become a couple. Emma believed it too, and it stung like acid every time she saw them together. By lunchtime, Emma's nerves were already frayed. She'd sat through 2 classes where group projects highlighted how easily Anna cooperated with classmates, how admired she was. Meanwhile, Emma had fumbled for words, anxious that her random partners would judge her for being too quiet or too distracted. A teacher had mentioned Emma's incomplete homework in front of the class, and Emma burned with humiliation. In the bustling cafeteria, Emma claimed a corner seat. She sipped half-heartedly from a carton of milk, picking at a bland sandwich. Across the sea of tables, Anna sat with Nolan and a cluster of other students. They laughed uproariously at some inside joke. Anna's eyes sparkled whenever she turned to Nolan. Emma tried to focus on her phone, or on the swirl of lunch smells in the air. Pizza, French fries, industrial dish soap. Anything to ignore the pang of jealousy that threatened to consume her. Out of nowhere, Anna waved at Emma. Anna mouthed something. "Come join us," and beckoned with a friendly gesture. Emma faked a shrug and pointed to her phone, pretending she was too busy. Anna frowned slightly but nodded, turning back to her circle. Emma felt a pang of guilt for refusing Anna's invitation. But she couldn't bear to watch Anna and Nolan's closeness up close. Not today. As the lunch period ended, Anna swung by Emma's table on her way out. Anna teased Emma about being antisocial. Her voice was gentle, but Emma couldn't help feeling defensive. Anna then changed the subject, asking if Emma wanted to collaborate on an upcoming art project, an optional assignment for bonus credit. Emma was passably decent at sketching, though nowhere near Anna's skill level. Still, the chance to spend time with Anna was both tempting and torturous. Emma forced a polite nod, mumbling that she'd think about it. Anna gave a bright smile, evidently hoping Emma would say yes. Nolan emerged behind Anna, giving Emma a quick wave. Emma felt her cheeks burn. With that, they vanished into the crowded corridor. Tug-of-war was the phrase that came to Emma's mind. She was locked in an internal tug-of-war, one side yearning for Anna's warmth and acceptance, the other side roiling with envy. She wanted to be grateful for Anna's kindness, but couldn't ignore the incessant bitter voice that whispered, "She has it all. She'll never understand your life." That evening, Emma trudged home to her dad's apartment. She found a note on the kitchen counter. "Working late. Dinner in the freezer." The freezer held half a bag of frozen fries and some unidentifiable leftover. Emma sighed, microwaving the leftover. She stared at the walls. They were peeling, stained from years of neglect. It was an environment of apathy, a far cry from Anna's bright, welcoming home. Emma wondered if Anna was sitting around her own dinner table at that very moment, sharing stories from her day with parents who actually cared. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Anna. "Hey, just checking on you. Everything okay? Let me know if you need anything." Emma's throat tightened. She tapped a short reply, "All good here, just tired," and left it at that. In truth, Emma was more than tired. She was drowning in a potent mix of longing, resentment, and shame. How could she feel so angry at someone who was nothing but good to her? Sleep came late, and with it, the seeds of a dark thought. What if Anna wasn't around anymore? Emma jolted upright in bed, horrified at her own imagination, but she couldn't unthink it. A few days later, Redwood High was abuzz with talk of an upcoming school dance set for the following month. Students debated outfits and dates in the hallways. Flyers went up on bulletin boards, advertising a pastel-themed evening in the gym. Anna and Nolan's friends whispered that Nolan might ask Anna in a grand gesture. Others speculated they were already dating in everything but name. Emma overheard these rumors in passing, each whisper a spike to her chest. One afternoon, Anna coaxed Emma into joining her in the library for a study session. Anna insisted she needed Emma's help to stay focused on a difficult math assignment. Emma begrudgingly agreed, partially curious if Anna would share any news about Nolan. The library was peaceful, sunbeams filtering through tall windows. They found a table near the back, unloading textbooks. Anna chattered about wanting to improve her grades. For a moment, Emma's bitterness receded as she fell into the role of tutor, explaining formulas with a clarity Anna seemed to appreciate. Eventually, the conversation drifted. Anna asked Emma about her parents, carefully probing how things were since the divorce. Emma shrugged, giving a non-committal answer. She didn't want pity. Yet, a small part of her ached to open up, to confess how lonely she felt. But that ache was overshadowed by envy. She didn't want Anna's sympathy. She wanted Anna's life. Nolan arrived later, sweaty from basketball practice, sliding into the seat next to Anna. He teased her about numbers swirling on the pages, then complimented Emma for being the brainy one of their trio. Emma's heart gave a conflicting flutter, part embarrassment, part pleasure that Nolan noticed her. However, as usual, he spoke mostly to Anna. After an hour of study, Anna and Nolan decided to leave together. Anna promised to treat Nolan to a smoothie, an inside joke referencing how he was always parched after practice. Emma lingered in her seat, telling them she had more work to do. She watched them walk away side by side, their easy rapport on full display. And there it was again, that black coil of resentment tightening in Emma's stomach. That night, Emma scrolled through social media. She found a freshly posted photo. Anna and Nolan at the smoothie shop, grinning for a selfie, straws raised in a mock toast. The caption read, "Study buddies turned into smoothie buddies. Haha." Comments rolled in from classmates, heart emojis, playful teasing about them being an adorable couple. Emma's chest ached. She locked her phone and threw it onto the bed. She stared at the ceiling, letting her thoughts circle. If Anna were gone, Nolan might turn to Emma for solace. It was a horrifying idea, yet it took root in her mind. She could almost see it, comforting Nolan in a tearful embrace, forging a bond in shared grief. The notion disturbed her so much that she sprang off the bed and paced the room. Eventually, she told herself she'd never actually do such a thing. It was just a fantasy born of jealousy. She wouldn't hurt Anna. She couldn't. But that fantasy refused to die. Days trickled by. The tension in Emma's chest never fully dissipated. She maintained a facade of normalcy. Anna remained oblivious, frequently inviting Emma to group lunches or offering to help Emma with creative projects. Nolan, polite as ever, showed Emma kindness and respect. None of it soothed Emma's gnawing discontent. One afternoon, Emma's father forgot to pick her up after school. She waited outside, leaning against a wall, watching students disperse. The sky was overcast, threatening rain. Emma's phone battery was nearly dead. She sighed in resignation, preparing to walk the 1.5 miles to the apartment. Then Anna appeared, offering Emma a ride home. Nolan was in the passenger seat. Anna had a driver's license, courtesy of her parents' supportive lessons and their spare car. Emma hesitated but climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled of vanilla air freshener. Anna asked about Emma's day in a bright, friendly tone. Nolan turned around to grin at Emma, joking about how they nearly left without seeing her there. Inside, Emma felt like an intruder in a world she could never fully join. Anna's gestures of kindness only magnified the differences between them. That short drive felt interminable. Anna prattled on about a new art concept, while Nolan chimed in with supportive remarks. Emma said little, grappling with the wave of bitterness. She wanted to scream that Anna was too perfect, that Nolan should notice her for once, that she was drowning in envy, but she remained silent. At the apartment building, Emma muttered a thank you and bolted out of the car. She heard Anna call after her, something about, "See you tomorrow." But Emma didn't look back. Later that night, Emma flicked through her phone contacts. She almost dialed Anna, wanting to vent, but she couldn't bring herself to be vulnerable. Instead, she opened an empty text message to Nolan. Her heart pounded as she typed, "Thanks for today. Sorry I was quiet." She stared at it, then deleted the words. She had no claim on him, nothing to say that wouldn't feel forced. She went to bed with that simmering frustration lodged in her gut. A week before the final explosion, though Emma had no inkling about gas leaks or future catastrophes, fate nudged her one step closer to crossing the line. She was in the hallway after school, rummaging in her locker. Most students had gone home, leaving the corridor quiet. She overheard two girls gossiping around the corner. Their voices carried, "Nolan's definitely gonna ask Anna to the dance, maybe even this weekend. Some big surprise, from what I heard. They're so cute together, everyone basically already ships them." Emma froze in place, her grip on the locker handle tightening. She listened until the voices faded. A cold dread seeped through her veins. It's really happening, she thought. Nolan and Anna were on the brink of becoming official, and Emma's envy threatened to swallow her whole. A single horrifying question repeated in her mind. What if Anna was just gone? That evening, Emma's father got into a drunken argument with a neighbor. Shouting rattled the thin apartment walls. Emma huddled in her room, music blasting through cheap headphones, trying to drown out the chaos. Her father eventually stumbled inside, muttering curses, ignoring Emma's presence. Emma clenched her fists, fury building at the injustice of everything. She had no mother figure by her side, no stable environment. Meanwhile, Anna thrived in a bright home. Unfair. The word pounded in her head. She recalled the rumor. Nolan was planning something special for Anna. Anna would have it all. Admiration, love, a stable future. Emma envisioned herself standing alone, overshadowed, her own parents barely present. The bitterness coalesced into a single dark resolution. She opened her laptop, searching aimlessly for methods, reading sensational stories about accidental tragedies. She found obscure references to illusions used in unfortunate accidents, slipping on wet floors, unnoticed staircases, even tampering with certain hazards. Her mind spun with possibilities. But each left her shaking and nauseated. Still, she returned night after night to those thoughts, her rage and despair fueling the unthinkable. She started carrying them around inside her like a secret. Each day, as she saw Anna glow in Nolan's attention, Emma's conviction hardened. She told herself that once Anna was gone, Emma would find a way to console Nolan. Over time, he'd learn to lean on her. The idea was twisted, but she fueled it with her heartbreak. The next morning at school, Anna excitedly pulled Emma aside to share big news. Nolan had asked Anna to go to the dance, unofficially, with a sweet note slipped into her locker. Anna was radiant with giddiness, eyes shining with an innocence that pricked Emma's conscience. Emma forced a bright smile, heart pounding. She congratulated Anna, ignoring the voice inside that screamed in anguish. Anna confided that she was nervous, that she'd never had a date with Nolan in a formal sense, and she valued Emma's opinion. Emma only nodded, biting the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood. She felt tears burning behind her eyes. She pictured Anna dancing with Nolan under twinkling lights, everything perfect, and Emma, left adrift, overshadowed more than ever. Something in Emma snapped. Later that day, alone in the dimly lit corridor leading to the older wing, a seldom-used section rumored to have hazardous maintenance issues, Emma pressed her forehead against the cool metal of a locker and let a single tear drop onto the floor. Enough. The word reverberated in her mind. She decided Anna needed to vanish. Method and madness. Emma spent the following days scrutinizing the school's layout. She knew from rumors that the older basement levels had poor ventilation, some busted pipes, and an old storage area. Hardly anyone went down there except janitors or drama kids searching for props. If an accident happened there, it might go unnoticed until too late. Emma's plan solidified. Lure Anna into that basement, contrive a fall or a blow to the head, something that would look like a freak accident. Emma's heart pounded whenever she imagined the moment she would have to push Anna, but the desperation overshadowed her moral horror. She convinced herself that once Anna was gone, Emma would find a way to console Nolan. Over time, he'd learn to lean on her. The depth of her desperation blinded her to the horror of such a plan. A few days passed. Emma picked Thursday after school. She'd observed Anna's schedule and knew Anna had an art club meeting that afternoon, a perfect time to corner her. Emma spent the night before in a sleepless haze, her thoughts a jumbled storm of determination and dread. When morning dawned, she dragged herself through classes, numb. She avoided conversation and barely touched lunch. At some point, Anna caught up to her by the lockers, noticing Emma's pale features. Anna asked if Emma felt sick. Emma forced a small smile, lying that she just had a headache. Anna offered to help if Emma needed anything. She always did, but Emma only shrugged. When the final bell rang, Emma's hands shook. She stuffed her belongings into her bag, then lingered by her locker until the halls emptied. Finally, she made her way to the art room. She spotted Anna inside, packing up paintbrushes and talking to a friend. Emma waited until the friend left, heart pounding so loudly she thought Anna might hear it. She stepped in, voice trembling but determined. She told Anna she'd discovered something really cool in the older wing, some rumor about an abandoned set of murals that Anna might love. Anna, predictably curious, agreed to check it out. She seemed excited, even. Emma nodded, leading the way, feeling each step like a march toward doom. The older corridor was quiet, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. A stale odor permeated the air. Emma's stomach churned as she told Anna the murals were supposedly near a locked basement door. Anna followed, hugging her sketchbook to her chest. She joked about how they might get in trouble exploring forbidden areas, but her tone was light. At last, they reached the door Emma had scouted, a narrow stairwell leading down to an old storage level. The sign read, "Authorized personnel only." Emma paused, gulping to steady her nerves. She told Anna she'd heard the murals were on the walls down there. Anna tilted her head, intrigued but cautious. She asked if Emma was sure it was safe. Emma plastered on a convincing nod and tested the door handle. It wasn't locked. They stepped onto the top step, the overhead light weak and flickering. A waft of musty air hit their noses. Emma's heart hammered at the realization that they were alone, that no one would likely interrupt. Anna took a few hesitant steps down. Curiosity piqued. She called out Emma's name, voice echoing in the cramped space. Emma knew this was the moment. She pictured the countless afternoons she'd spent alone while Anna basked in camaraderie with Nolan. She pictured her father's neglected apartment, the empty chair at the table, the cold dinners. She pictured Anna's bright home, her laughter, her ease of being. Fury and envy fused into a single desperate impetus. Anna paused on a landing, turning to face Emma. She asked if Emma was coming. Emma forced a half smile, descending one more step until she stood just above Anna, close enough to see the faint lines of worry in Anna's eyes. Anna asked, "Is something wrong?" Because Emma's face must have shown something dark. Emma hesitated. An avalanche of memories threatened to break her resolve. The first day of kindergarten, their shared jokes at summer camp, Anna's unwavering support during Emma's parents' fights. But then Emma thought of Nolan, the dance, the overshadowed existence. Something snapped. She lunged forward, placing both hands against Anna's shoulders and shoving with every ounce of strength. Anna's eyes went wide with shock. She staggered backwards, arms flailing, sketchbook flying from her grip. For a split second, her foot caught on the edge of the step. She lost her balance. Time seemed to slow as Anna tumbled down the remaining stairs, her body hitting each concrete step with sickening force. A final thud resounded as she landed in a crumpled heap at the bottom, her head striking the floor at a terrible angle. Emma stood frozen, adrenaline roaring in her ears, her vision tunneling. She tasted bile. A few seconds of deafening silence followed, broken only by Emma's ragged breathing. She willed Anna to move, to say something, but Anna lay still. The only movement was a small trickle of blood meandering across the dusty floor. Emma's mind screamed that this was a nightmare, that she could still save Anna. She rushed down the stairs, dropping to her knees beside Anna's limp form. She tentatively pressed 2 fingers to Anna's neck, searching for a pulse. A faint beat fluttered, then seemed to vanish. Anna's eyes were half open, unfocused. Emma felt the world spin. She realized with cold clarity Anna was dying or already gone. She had done this. It wasn't an accident. She jerked upright, tears blurring her vision. Panic seized her. What if someone heard the noise? What if they came looking? She had no plausible story to explain. Instinct took over. She scrambled back up the stairs, not daring to look behind. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she fled the corridor, each step echoing in her guilt-ridden mind. Murderer. Out in the main hallway, she forced her expression into blankness. A few late-staying students milled about. Emma kept her head low, slipping past them with trembling legs. She made it to her locker, grabbed her bag, and left the building. Outside, the autumn sky was tinted with purples and oranges. She swallowed lungfuls of fresh air, half expecting sirens to start blaring. But everything was normal. No alarms, no frantic staff. Anna's absence hadn't been discovered yet. Emma stumbled off campus, eventually finding a bus stop. She collapsed onto the bench, hugging her backpack, feeling her entire body shaking uncontrollably. She replayed the moment of impact over and over. Anna's wide, shocked eyes, the dull thud of her body hitting concrete. Emma wanted to scream, but no sound emerged. At home, her father was asleep, as usual. Emma locked herself in her room. She stared at the mirror, hardly recognizing her own reflection. She whispered Anna's name in a cracked voice, tears streaking her cheeks. She expected an onslaught of regret, but what she felt was mostly numbness, punctuated by spikes of terror. A frantic part of her brain insisted she check if Anna's body had been found, but she had no way of knowing. The hours crawled. Emma paced her room in silence. Her phone remained in her pocket, no messages from Anna or Nolan. Of course, there wouldn't be. She refused to look at social media. She half expected the police to knock on her door at any moment. Instead, the night stretched into dawn with excruciating slowness, leaving Emma in the throes of dread. At school the next day she arrived with trembling dread, bracing herself for chaos. But the halls were bizarrely normal. Students joked, gossiped, slammed lockers. She overheard a teacher mention that Anna's parents had reported her missing. She hadn't come home. A jolt speared through Emma. She realized it might take time for someone to check that old basement, especially if the door had swung shut behind Emma. No one suspected foul play yet. Nolan caught up to Emma by the lockers, eyes frantic. He asked if Emma had seen Anna. She never came home. She wasn't answering calls or texts. Emma's heart nearly stopped, but she forced her face into worry. She lied, saying Anna had left the art room early and Emma assumed she went home. Nolan raked a hand through his hair, face dark with concern. He muttered something about searching every corner of the campus if he had to. Emma felt her chest constrict, but she kept her mask in place. By midday, the tension at Redwood High escalated. Whispers circulated that Anna was missing. Teachers asked around. The principal made an announcement for anyone with information. Still, no one thought to check that musty old basement. Emma floated through the day in a daze, not eating, not responding much. Her stomach churned with guilt. Eventually, a janitor discovered Anna's body. The news hit like a thunderbolt. An ambulance arrived, staff swarmed the older wing, and students were told to leave campus if possible. Rumors swirled. Some said Anna had fallen, others suggested a meltdown or self-harm. No one guessed she'd been pushed. Nolan was inconsolable. Emma lingered near him in a haze, offering hollow words of comfort. He barely seemed to register her presence, eyes red and vacant. Emma's own grief was tangled with guilt. She managed to feign shock, tears rolling down her face. Students assumed she was simply devastated for losing a best friend. And so the first horrific phase concluded. Anna Reed was dead, her bright life extinguished on the cold steps of that forgotten basement corridor. The days after Anna's death were surreal. The school donned black ribbons, teachers discussed grief counseling, and the art club set up a memorial in the courtyard, displaying Anna's sketches. Students lit candles and wrote heartfelt messages on pastel paper pinned to a large board. Emma stood among them, trembling as she read tributes. "You were always so kind, gone too soon. We love you, Anna." Nolan was a shell of himself. He wandered the halls with hollow eyes, occasionally snapping at well-meaning classmates who tried to say how sorry they were. Emma wanted to comfort him, but she didn't know how. The knowledge that she was the cause of his pain paralyzed her. Still, her twisted logic told her this was also an opening. He needed someone, and that someone could be Emma. At home, Emma wrestled with nightmares. She'd wake at odd hours, drenched in sweat, seeing Anna's face in the darkness. She felt certain the police would come knocking eventually. But as days passed, it seemed the authorities and staff concluded Anna's death was a tragic accident. The old stairwell was in disrepair. Perhaps Anna fell. With no evidence of foul play, the story ended there. 3 days after Anna's body was found, Emma spotted Nolan leaving the gym after practice, or more accurately, after he attempted to practice. He looked lost, eyes puffy. She mustered her courage, approached, and gently asked if he was okay. Nolan barely responded. He muttered something about it not feeling real. Emma suggested they talk somewhere quieter. Nolan shrugged emptily, so they ended up in the dimly lit cafeteria, now empty after hours. Emma sat across from him, hands folded. She whispered that Anna meant everything to both of them, that she couldn't believe she was gone. Tears brimmed in Emma's eyes, and for once, they were genuine. She might have harbored lethal envy, but she had never hated Anna. Nolan's facade cracked. He let out a sob, pressing his fists to his eyes. He cried in harsh, ragged gasps. Emma reached out tentatively, placing a hand on his arm. She told him she understood, that she missed Anna too, more than words could say. He didn't recoil, but he didn't move closer either. Still, it was a start. She walked him home that evening, a silent companion to his grief. At his door, she offered a clumsy hug. He allowed it, though his body remained stiff. Emma lingered on his doorstep, heart pounding. She whispered goodbye, turning away before he could see the guilt in her eyes. In the following week, Emma made a habit of finding Nolan at lunch or after classes. She told herself she was helping, that it was only fair she comfort him after taking Anna away. But her true motive was more complicated. She craved his attention, yearned for him to see her as indispensable. It was the twisted outcome she had envisioned from the start, yet Nolan remained distant. He politely listened when Emma spoke, even let her sit beside him in the courtyard. But his mind was clearly somewhere else. Sometimes he would mutter that he kept expecting Anna to appear around a corner. Other times he lapsed into silence, and Emma felt powerless to reach him. Frustration gnawed at her. She had done the unthinkable. Shouldn't that guarantee Nolan would cling to her? Late one evening, Emma scoured the internet for ways to heal heartbreak, searching for any method to fill the void in Nolan's soul. Her search devolved into esoteric corners, spells, rituals, superstitions that promised to mend or manipulate. She stared at these pages, half laughing at the absurdity, half tempted by the notion that some intangible force could give her what she wanted. She felt unmoored, desperate. She had to believe there was some path to forging a connection with Nolan, to ensuring he never left her side. That night she dreamed of Anna, her body crumpled at the bottom of the steps, eyes glazed with betrayal. Emma jerked awake, tears streaming, heart pounding. She pressed a hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. The dream left her more convinced than ever that she had to succeed in winning Nolan's affection. Otherwise, she would have nothing. No justification, no redemption. It would all be for nothing. Emma's interest in shadowy rituals started off almost as a joke. She found a dusty old library book on folklore and superstitions. It mentioned charms for luck, spells for attraction, wards against evil. Emma read it obsessively, comforted by the idea that some hidden realm of power existed where she might rewrite her own life's trajectory. On a whim, she tried one minor ritual from the book, burning a lock of hair with a scribbled wish. She felt foolish crouching in her bedroom, lighter in hand, a small metal bowl for ashes. But the moment she whispered her desire, "Make Nolan see me, need me, want me," she felt a strange surge of hope. She convinced herself a shift had occurred, no matter how irrational. Over the next days, she performed these small rites in secret. She stuck to the simpler ones, chanting over candle flames, sprinkling salt in corners, scribbling incantations. She felt an odd sense of control, as if harnessing an invisible power. She told herself it was all in good fun, yet part of her believed wholeheartedly that it might alter her destiny. A turning point came when Emma invited Nolan to her place under the guise of reviewing some of Anna's old sketches. She claimed Anna had lent them to her before the accident, and she wanted to return them to him. Nolan agreed reluctantly. He arrived at Emma's dad's apartment one drizzly afternoon. The place was stale, messy, the couch lumpy. Nolan looked uncomfortable, but he obliged, flipping through the sketches with a mournful gaze. They included whimsical drawings of swirling shapes, partial portraits, even a rough sketch of Nolan's face. Emma hovered behind him, heart hammering. She mentioned how Anna always loved Nolan, how she used to talk about him constantly. Nolan's eyes grew shiny with tears. Emma delicately placed a hand on his shoulder, offering words of comfort. He leaned into her touch, just for a moment, and Emma's pulse soared. She felt the heartbreak radiating off him, but also a spark of vulnerability. She told herself the rituals were working, that fate was guiding him into her arms. Nolan left soon after, giving Emma a grateful nod. She felt triumphant, as if each step was bringing him closer. She ignored the shame that whispered, "You caused his pain in the first place." Emboldened, Emma sought more intense rituals. She found a shady forum online discussing binding spells, purported to tie another person's emotions to one's own. One ritual called for a personal object from the desired person, combined with a hair or fingernail from the caster, then chanted over candle flames. Emma told herself this was silly, but she felt a mounting compulsion to try. She rationalized it as forging a path to rectify the tragedy she created. She stole one of Nolan's basketball sweatbands from the gym locker area, a small worn cloth bearing his scent. Late that night, in her dim bedroom, she lit a circle of candles. She placed the sweatband next to a strand of her hair. Hands shaking, she recited the words from the forum, summoning energies she half believed in. With each line, she pictured Nolan's face, willed him to see her in a new light, to love her as he had loved Anna. When the last candle sputtered out, Emma felt an eerie stillness in the room. No bolt of lightning struck, no swirl of ghostly wind. Yet she sensed something shift within her. She whispered, "Let him need me," one final time into the darkness. In the days that followed, Emma noticed subtle changes in Nolan's behavior. He texted her more often, usually about small things, asking if she was going to a particular class event or whether she'd seen a certain movie. When they passed in the hallway, he offered a faint smile instead of the hollow stare that had characterized his grief. He even joked lightly once or twice, though the sadness in his eyes never truly faded. Emma latched onto these moments with desperation, convincing herself the spells had taken effect. She felt a surge of possessive satisfaction. She had torn Anna from the picture, and now Nolan was drifting toward her. The memory of Anna's lifeless body haunted her still, but the guilt was dulled by the intoxication of progress. They began having quiet lunches together. Initially, other classmates tried to join, but Nolan shrugged them off. He seemed to prefer Emma's company, perhaps because they both shared a raw grief for Anna. They talked about inconsequential topics, as if talking about Anna directly was too painful. Sometimes Nolan stared off into space, lost in memory. Emma would watch him, a swirl of pity and triumph in her chest. One afternoon, Nolan confided that he couldn't walk past certain lockers without thinking of Anna. He recalled times they'd teased each other, the way Anna left him motivational notes on tough days. Emma listened, fighting the sting of regret that she'd destroyed something so pure. But she also relished how he opened up to her in ways he never had before. The part of her that was still morally horrified seemed to recede, drowned out by the high of closeness with him. Nolan began to rely on Emma for emotional support more intensely. He texted her late at night when insomnia plagued him. He asked her to sit with him after basketball practice, claiming her presence soothed him. Emma enveloped him in this attention, feeling a sense of power. Though part of her recognized it was likely the normal process of grief and not magic, she clung to the idea that her rituals had forged a bond. During one quiet study hall, Nolan reached out and squeezed Emma's hand briefly. She looked up to see tears in his eyes. In a trembling voice, he said, "Thanks for being here." Her heart soared with guilty pride, remembering the final push that ended Anna's life. She swallowed the lump in her throat and squeezed back, whispering that she'd always be there for him. As weeks passed, they grew physically closer in small ways, walking shoulder to shoulder, leaning in to whisper in crowded hallways. Once, Emma brushed her fingers across Nolan's arm, and he didn't flinch. She felt an electric spark. Could this be what she had murdered for? But the connection was fragile. Emma sensed that Nolan's devotion was not quite romantic yet. His feelings were tangled in grief, maybe even desperation. She tried not to resent that. She had orchestrated this scenario. She had to be patient. In her darkest moments, she repeated the spells in secret, chanting for his unwavering need. She carried the sweatband in her backpack, occasionally touching it like a talisman. She insisted to herself that it was all justified. She needed Nolan's love as much as she needed air. The catastrophic end was creeping closer. The school's infrastructure had grown increasingly unstable, though few realized the full extent. Old pipes in the basement had hairline cracks, and a gas line was corroded. Minor leaks went unnoticed, until it was too late. On a fateful day, 10 days after Anna's death, students and staff bustled through Redwood High as usual. Nolan's texts to Emma had been more urgent lately, hinting at a deep inner turmoil. He said he needed to speak with her privately about something he couldn't shake. Emma wondered if he was nearing a confession of deeper feelings. Between classes, Nolan caught Emma near the old corridor that led to the basement. He looked agitated, breathing quickly. He asked Emma if they could talk somewhere quiet. She suggested the library, but he shook his head, saying it was too public. Emma, trying to be helpful, recalled that the basement area was usually deserted. She hesitated for a split second, a cold sweat forming on her brow as she remembered Anna. But she relented, guiding Nolan down the same hall where tragedy had struck. They slipped through the door, descending the concrete steps. A wave of musty air greeted them, though Emma detected a faint chemical odor that set her nerves on edge. She swallowed hard, flicking on a weak overhead light that illuminated the storage space. Broken desks, chairs, and boxes were piled haphazardly. Nolan paced, hands trembling. He turned to Emma, voice quivering, admitting he couldn't move on from Anna's death. He said he kept feeling like it wasn't just an accident, that something was off. He'd had nightmares of Anna falling, but also nightmares of someone pushing her. Emma's stomach dropped. A chill ran through her limbs. She tried to calm him, claiming Anna's death was just a tragic misstep. But Nolan shook his head, tears welling. He said he felt guilty for not being there, that maybe if he'd accompanied Anna, she'd still be alive. Emma realized he was consumed by self-blame. She exhaled relief that he hadn't uncovered her role. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. She whispered that he couldn't torture himself like this. She was here now, and she understood his pain. Nolan's eyes flicked to hers, raw with sorrow. Without warning, he leaned in, pressing his forehead to her shoulder, voice cracking. "I don't know how to keep going." Emma, heart hammering, wrapped her arms around him. She felt his breath hitch. The swirl of guilt and longing nearly overwhelmed her. Her mind screamed, "This is what you wanted." She stroked his back, murmuring soft assurances. The basement's gloom pressed around them like a shroud. Then, with a jolt of desperation, Nolan's lips found Emma's in a sudden, messy kiss. She gasped, tears streaming down his cheeks as he clutched her. She reciprocated, mind spinning. This was the moment she had fantasized about in her darkest hours, but it felt hollow, tinged with grief and guilt. Still, she kissed him back, clinging to the only warmth she'd known in ages. In that hidden basement, they clutched each other in a heady mix of sorrow and misplaced desire. Emma whispered that she would never leave him, that he wasn't alone. Nolan's breathing was ragged, tears dampening both their faces. The kiss deepened, frantic. Emma felt the swirl of guilt intensify, yet she pushed it down. She'd wanted him so badly. She'd committed an unspeakable act for this chance. Their embrace pressed them against a cluster of pipes near the wall, some rusted, some rattling with a low hum. Neither of them noticed the faint hiss escaping from a compromised joint. Their heated closeness jostled an already weakened connection. Suddenly an ominous clank echoed through the basement. Nolan pulled back, alarmed. Emma looked up, hearing a high-pitched whistling noise intensify. The overhead light flickered. She realized with dawning horror that a gas line was rupturing. She smelled it then, a pungent tang of gas flooding the stale air. Panic flared in Nolan's eyes. He grabbed Emma's hand, urging her to run. They managed a few steps toward the stairs before a spark, maybe from faulty wiring or a flickering light bulb, ignited the swirling gas. A massive explosion tore through the basement, a blast wave that flung them like rag dolls. Above them, the school's floors shook. Glass shattered, lockers warped, and ceilings collapsed. Students in the hallways were knocked off their feet. Fire alarms screeched as columns of flame roared through the breach, devouring oxygen and fueling a catastrophic chain reaction. The entire building began to cave under the force of multiple blasts from the compromised gas lines. In the basement, Emma's ears rang, her vision a chaos of flame and dust. She lay pinned beneath a collapsed support beam, pain radiating through her side. Through the haze, she saw Nolan's motionless form sprawled a few feet away, debris across his legs. She coughed, trying to call his name, but her voice was lost in the inferno's roar. Above them, floors caved in, sending a rain of concrete and steel down into the basement. Emma felt heat singe her hair, her skin searing. She mustered the last of her strength, crawling toward Nolan, tears searing her cheeks. She reached out, her fingertips brushing his arm. He stirred faintly, eyes half open in anguish. For a final moment, Emma gazed into Nolan's eyes. She saw heartbreak, terror, a flicker of confusion. She tried to mouth an apology for everything, for taking Anna, for leading them to this dead end of sorrow. But the words never formed. A final collapse thundered through the structure. The floor above gave way entirely, releasing a cataclysm of rubble that swallowed them both. Emma's last thought was a fragmented memory of Anna's laughter, echoing in her mind. Then all went black. The next day's headlines told of an unspeakable tragedy at Redwood High. A massive gas explosion had ripped through the old basement, igniting a chain of structural failures. Firefighters and rescue teams combed the wreckage. The final death toll was staggeringly high. Students, teachers, staff. Among the confirmed fatalities, Emma Martin and Nolan Pierce, found together beneath the ruins. The community reeled. Parents demanded to know why the building's infrastructure was allowed to deteriorate so dangerously. Candlelight vigils sprang up for the second time that month. The same courtyard where Anna's memorial had been displayed now held pictures of all those lost in the explosion, Emma and Nolan included. Whispers spread among students who had survived. Some claimed Emma and Nolan had a secret relationship, that they died in each other's arms. Others speculated that Emma had been the one to sabotage the gas lines, though no real evidence supported such rumors. The truth, that Emma had carried out a jealous murder, only to die in the cataclysm, was never discovered. In time, Redwood High's remains were demolished, the site cleared for a new school. Families moved on, healing with difficulty. Anna's parents established a scholarship in her memory, praising her artistic spirit. Nolan's family grieved quietly, cherishing photos of a gentle boy who never got to fulfill his dreams. Emma's father, hollow-eyed, found only scattered fragments of his daughter's diaries, never gleaning the darkest secrets they contained. And so the hallway, once a stage for teenage laughter, gossip, blossoming love, and hidden resentments, was reduced to rubble. The lives intertwined there ended in a final, fiery crescendo. One might say it was the ultimate cautionary tale, a dire warning of how envy and desperation can twist a lonely soul beyond recognition, and how fate sometimes conspires in catastrophic ways that spare no one. All that remained were memories, fragile, fallible recollections of Emma, Anna, and Nolan, forever bound in tragedy, forever lost in the corridors of Redwood High.